about a year before, a document entitled Rebuilding America's Defenses was published by an organization called the Project for the New American Century. Founding included Dick Cheney, Paul Wolfowitz, and Donald Rumsfeld. This document focused primarily on getting more tax monies allocated for the technological transformation of the U.S. military, with the centerpiece of this technological transformation being the U.S. Space Command's project to weaponize and thereby control space. Because this transformation of the U.S. military will be very expensive, the document said, it will probably proceed very slowly unless America suffers some catastrophic and catalyzing event like a new Pearl Harbor. It is interesting that then on the night of 9/11 itself, President Bush reportedly wrote in his diary, "The Pearl Harbor of the 21st century took place today." In any case, earlier that evening, Secretary of Defense Rumsfeld was on message. We might assume he would have been disoriented by the fact that the Pentagon had just, under his watch, suffered an unprecedented attack. Instead, he was ready to use the attacks to obtain more money for the U.S. Space Command. He had just before taking office, in fact, chaired the commission about the U.S. Space Command, popularly known as the Rumsfeld Commission. That evening of 9/11 itself, in front of television cameras, Rumsfeld berated Senator Carl Levin, then chairman of the Senate Armed Services Committee, saying, "Senator Levin, you and other Democrats in the Congress have voiced fear that you simply don't have enough money for the large increases in defense that the Pentagon is seeking, especially for missile defense. Does this sort of thing convince you that an emergency exists in this country to increase defense spending?" The strategy worked. Congress immediately appropriated an additional $40 billion for the Pentagon. Since then, furthermore, the President has gotten every additional appropriation he has sought for the so-called War on Terror. Besides being a rousing success in obtaining increased spending for military purposes, 9/11 also provided the pretext for putting many military bases in Central Asia.
Well, I hope you picked up on some of that from the University of Wisconsin-Madison, my alma mater, Madison, Wisconsin. What is happening in this country is a systematic destruction of the country. Under both Clinton and Bush, jobs were exported out of this country. And the Democrats cannot deny that it was under Clinton they signed this horrible bill, gave it a wonderful name, but it took working class men's jobs and shipped them to other countries. Bush continued it. They did it this way because they didn't want a Republican to ship the jobs out, so the Democrats could say, "Oh, the Republicans that did that, if we had only had a Democratic president, we could have stopped it." No, they had a Democratic president. That was William Clinton, the Monica Lewinsky chaser, and another dozen other women chaser. You know, the guy that says, "I did not have sex with that woman. Darn, missed one." Well, you can always try again, Slick Willie. It just amazes me how people just keep voting Democrat, Republican, and it doesn't make any difference. There was a man named Quigley who wrote for the New World Order decades ago, and he says, what we must do to subvert the democracy is make sure it doesn't matter which choice they pick. As long as we pick their choices in the final election, either one they pick is our guy. He'll do our stuff. So when they said Obama is for change, oh yeah, he opened up a third place to have an unconstitutional war. He was supposed to end the one in Iraq. Well, he didn't do that in the first year as he promised. He opened up a third one in Libya. You see, it didn't matter. There were enough Democrats who would just knee-jerk, blindly vote Democrat because Bush is so bad. No, they're both bad. They were both bad. The one good choice you had, the media drummed out, that was Ron Paul. But he's running again in 2012. And he's winning all their polls. Isn't that amazing? Ron Paul, the congressman who served, I think he's in his 12th or 13th term from Texas, they stole delegates from him in 2008. I mean, the Republican Party stole the delegates. I mean, the top of the Republican Party. I'm not talking about the low-level Republicans in your county. No, it was the state executives and the national Republican executives stole the entire state delegates from Nevada. All should have gone to Ron Paul. Instead, they all went to John McCain because Romney dropped out. And Ron Paul was second after Romney. McCain did a lousy showing in Nevada. They stole votes in New Hampshire. They stole votes in Florida. They stole votes in Louisiana from Ron Paul. He really was the people's choice. And even that hardcore Democrat attorney, Michael Min in Texas, told me, I'm a Democrat, I'm a Democrat, I'm a Democrat, but I can support Ron Paul. Maybe that's why the media, like that blonde-haired wonder boy whose mother bought him a place on a major network, what's his name? Anderson 360 or something like that. How did he get to be a big shot in national TV? He was a nobody, and all of a sudden he's on national TV. You got all these blonde bimbos that are nobodies, and all of a sudden they're national TV reporters. Didn't work their way up through the ranks. Something is wrong with America. It's being systematically dismantled for a purpose, and it won't matter whether you vote Democrat or Republican unless you're voting for Ron Paul. Now, it may sound like I'm pushing for Ron Paul, and I'd say guilty as charged because he's the constitutionalist. He's the only one that will support all your civil liberties, all of them. Wouldn't that be interesting to actually have a president who didn't want to lock up everybody that disagrees with the government in jail? That would be Ron Paul. Obama's already saying he has the authority to assassinate, not just arrest, but assassinate any American in or outside of America. Not that Bush didn't do it quietly on the side, but Obama's saying, I'll rewrite the Constitution.